Hello and welcome to Mad Millennial Media Munchers, a casual and Canadian bi-weekly media discussion podcast. I'm Zach.
My name's Julianna.
And we're finally doing this. After so long, we've finally been able to scrape together and get recording. How are you doing, Julianna?
I'm not too bad. A little bit tired. It's been a long week, but we get a surprise day off, so I can't complain.
Yeah, I'm glad that you at least get that off, because you've been working really hard lately, and you deserve it. I unfortunately do not get that off, being a private sector worker.
Right, of course.
But that's okay. I get like 2 weeks off a year, so I cannot complain.
Yeah, it'll be good for you at least.
Yeah. So, you went to PAX 2 weeks ago.
I did. It's the first time I've been in like 3 or 4 years. Basically, it's the first time since the pandemic happened. It did run last year. I didn't go because I wasn't quite comfortable about it yet. But this year I decided to make the pilgrimage to Seattle to see what's happening. It was interesting. I'd heard from some friends about the Eastern one that a lot of the big names hadn't shown up. Like Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, Square Enix weren't there for Eastern. Mostly the same for Western this year. Nintendo did make a showing though. Their whole thing was basically like a little bit of Pokemon and like major Splatoon focus because it was coming out a week later.
Yeah, so this was your second PAX?
Technically it's my third, but it's my first one where I actually went for all 4 days.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, my first one was like only 1 day, like several years ago.
I can't imagine doing all 4 days of a convention like that, because most cons here in BC are like 2.5 days.
Yeah, that's true. I found I actually found 4 days to be pretty good. I had that same worry. I'm like, man, do I really need to like pay tickets for 4 days of convention? But having done it now, I'm actually really quite glad that I did, because even though that this year's PAX was not as busy as it was with the amount of people and the amount of content as it was in the last time I went, I still found that like there's probably still more stuff I could have done with, for instance, like a 5th day.
Oh yeah.
But it allows for enough time. 4 days allows for enough time to like go see some stuff, still have enough time to go back to the hotel, to grab dinner, to rest, so I'm not going like 16 hours a day.
Do you think you were able to see like most of what the convention had to offer?
Yeah, I think so. The plus side to there not being quite as many big name companies there this year meant that like it got filled up for like a lot of little indie games and such, and the lines for those aren't nearly quite as bad as they get to be when you've got like Square Enix doing some gigantic presentation.
Right. Yeah, I remember you telling me a bit about the lines and someone taking up a bit too much time at a demo.
Yeah, there's I'm in a toss-up sometimes when it comes to game demos, especially at events like this where there are a lot of people. There was one company that had their demo, and they had like 3 kind of arcade machine looking booths set up to play. But the line I was in, it's an enclosed level, so once you started it, you finished it, and that was it. But there was no time limit on it. So while it was a level that, for instance, most people were getting through in 15-20 minutes, like there was a guy at the front of my line who was in there playing for a solid 55 minutes on that level.
Oh god.
So I get in a little bit of a toss-up, where one part of me thinks at a convention this big, there should be a time limit. On the downside, it means there are some people who won't finish the level if they don't like have like a focus to try to make it to the end of there. But I think like even like a 25-minute time limit would have been fine, because I saw somebody finish that same level in like 12 minutes, and someone else who took a bit of time, talked to a few extra people who finished it in about like 20 minutes. But yeah, this person was just was just going and talking to everybody and like everything, and sometimes a couple times over, and just backtracking into areas repeatedly. Yeah, they were at it for about 55 minutes.
Oh my god, that's so frustrating. Now, I definitely agree with you that there should be some kind of hard time limit set. Like, I would say like a reasonable like 30 minutes at most, but if people can get it done in 20 minutes, 25 minutes is reasonable. Like, you need to keep the line moving.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you see there?
So a lot of smaller indie companies just kind of like demoing their games. Like there's a little rhythm game that's like a platformer. It's really an alpha still, but it was like a little platformer rhythm game. So you'd have to jump around, but then there'd be like the circles that have the timing outer ring circle that would come into the middle, and then when it hit that, you'd have to like hit the corresponding up, down, left, right key for the timing on that note before you kept going through the stage.
Interesting.
I tried the Pokemon TGC for like the first time ever, actually playing the game and not just like collecting the cards.
Did they have like people playing the trading card game there?
Yeah, it wasn't there wasn't a tournament this time, but it was a little bit more of like a demo showcase type of thing. I guess there must be a new booster set that's coming out. I admittedly don't really follow the TGC anymore after like the first 3 expansions where I was just collecting cards. But yeah, they had a really big booth promoting it, and it had quite a sizable lineup. I actually didn't go until Monday, but it turns out the line was more daunting than it looked. They moved people through pretty quickly with all the stations they had set up.
Cool.
But yeah, you went in there, they had you play against another like person in the line with a couple little like a little game mode, one which was like considered catching Pokemon by like laying a few out on the field and then topping them up to the energy types that they needed to be able to catch them. And it was like first to 3 wins. And then they actually gave, after that one, and a small, like a really base tutorial about evolving Pokemon, you'd go up to a counter and they gave you a free pin, which was super cute. It's like 3 cards fanned out and a Pikachu like laying in front of it basically on its elbows holding its chin. And then they give you like a 30 card deck, and then with that 30 card deck you could go to the next station and actually crack open the deck and play that deck against another person. And if you did that, then you go back to the counter and they give you like a booster pack and another 30 card deck to give you a full 60 cards there. No, but it was interesting though, because there's some things I never knew, because like I said, I was a collector, I wasn't a player.
Yeah, I remember collecting the cards as a kid, but I don't think I have ever played a game of Pokemon, the trading card game.
Yeah, there's some things I wasn't expecting, like being able to evolve Pokemon is not like some crazy convoluted thing. It's in a really baseline. It's like basically if you've had them on the field or on your bench for a turn already, and you've got the next evolution card in hand, you can just evolve it on the spot pretty much.
Wow.
There's no like additional cost to it. They just had to have been out for a turn. Something else that I didn't realize was energy cards. You're more familiar with Magic, right?
Yes, yeah. I play Magic casually from time to time.
Yeah. So energy cards are kind of your equivalent to mana, where you need to spend so and so much energy to be able to use particular attacks and stuff like that.
Right.
The thing I never realized before, and maybe I should have, considering how many energy cards go into a deck, is you don't actually discard those energy cards after you've used the move with them. They just sit there.
It's kind of like lands in Magic, where they're a permanent card that you tap. Do you tap it to like determine that you've used it?
You probably could, but we didn't, because you really only battle one Pokemon at a time, so it's not like you have to keep track of lands mana being used here and here and here. It's just like this mon attacks. That's my that's my turn with the consumption of the energy.
Oh, I didn't
Whether or not you use
realize
all
it
of it
was.
or not.
I did not realize that it was a one-on-one game. That's interesting.
There might be like 2v2 for card battle. I'm not sure. Like I can't say for sure. And the only reason why I think there might be is because like the video games allow for 2v2 Pokemon battles. So maybe there's a variant of card battle that's 2v2. I couldn't tell you. But yeah, for some reason I really thought that you essentially had to like discard and reload all of the energy, or at least like consume and somehow reload all of the energy cards to them on. But nope, they just stay there. So once you've got your like 4 energies on a Pokemon with a particularly strong attack, you can just keep using that thing over and over and over again.
Cool. Anything else interesting happening at the convention?
I had a hell of a time with my hotel reservation.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh. So I got there on Friday morning. My hotel reservation was supposed to be for 3 o'clock. And I realized at a point that, like, I was like, oh, I was supposed to get an email for the check-in for the hotel because it was closer. I really shouldn't call it a hotel. It was more of an Airbnb, but I booked it through, like, a travel agency website. And I got this thing saying, yeah, 72 hours before your check-in time, you should receive an email that has, like, essentially the instructions for a self-check-in and a code to get through the door. And I realized I never got that email.
Oh no.
So I called the the management for that hotel, because like they don't have a front desk. That's why I say it's closer to an Airbnb, but I'm just gonna call it a hotel for ease of conversation. So I called basically the manager for that, and they looked me up and they couldn't find like my booking number, and they couldn't find anything about me. And they're like, the room is already booked. I'm like, well, crap. I'm in a different country, in a different city, at present with no place to sleep.
Oh,
and I'm here for 4 days.
And did you drive down there?
Yeah, and I drove down. So I guess, like, in a really, really big pinch.
Like, you could have slept in the vehicle, but
that
would have been rough.
Yeah. Because, like, the place I picked originally was because it was really close walking distance to the convention. It was, like, maybe a 10-minute walk.
Right.
15-minute walk to the convention site, which is why I picked it. And it was relatively inexpensive. But, so yeah, they couldn't find my reservation anywhere. So I called, they gave me a phone number for another help desk to call, and I basically got bounced to 8 different people.
Oh my god. This is a horror story.
Trying to go from like the hotel help to like the travel agency company that I booked with, who would bounce me back to the hotel help, who were like, we can't access this, like I can't change anything on this account. Here, call these people instead. It was just back and forth and back and forth.
Oh my lord.
And for like 2.5 hours. I basically spent 2.5 hours in the convention, like a quiet spot of the convention lobby, trying to sort out what was going on with my hotel situation.
Oh my god, I am so sorry that happened.
Like, thankfully in the end, I managed to get on the line with a woman who must have been like fairly up there in the management line, who managed to help me out. But she's like, look, I just need to do this other stuff and I'll call you back. And that happened a couple times. She's like, okay, I just gotta do this now and I'll call you back. And she's like, okay, what are you looking for? I'm like, I need a place for the parking spot. I really want it to be within like this close of a radius of the convention, because this is why I picked the other one initially. And she's like, okay, I'll see what I can do. Keep your ringer on. I'll give you a call back. And in the end, she got me into a hotel that was like half the distance from the convention center of the original one that I'd booked. And the room was worth probably like 2.5 times as much.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't pay anything extra, which is good.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, it was a much, much nicer room with like free breakfast down in the cafeteria lobby area.
Love a good continental breakfast.
Yeah, right. So the phone call was a huge headache, but it did at least all work out in the end.
That sucks. But
oh yeah.
Oh my god, I'm glad that it worked out in the end at least. While you were in, I'm assuming Seattle is where that's held? Right. I have never attended PAX or any convention outside of British Columbia. Now that I think about it, no, that's not exactly true. I did step into a con in Edmonton when I was visiting my sister, but that was like for a day.
Right. Yeah. What I forgot to do earlier is part of why you could actually fill 4 days of a convention when it comes to PAX is the Seattle one, for instance, is spread over like 4 buildings.
Oh, wow.
Like, you have to get to other locations, other panels or shopping or whatever, you have to, like, walk a block or 2 down to get to, like, another hotel that they've rented for some of their stuff. I guess the funny thing is I've never attended any of those other conventions that are in Seattle that are, like, in the same building.
Right.
PAX has been the only one I've gone to. Yeah, so what were you up to?
So while you were in Seattle, I was having a weekend getaway at Harrison Hot Springs with a bunch of friends. One of my friend's parents invested in a hotel when it was being built, like right along the beachfront, like street, and so they have a quarter timeshare there. And we were able to get a really decent room for free. And I was there for a couple nights, and we didn't really do anything. We just spent time in the hot tub. We walked all around the beach. It was just a really great time. Wish I could have been at a convention, though.
No, a getaway is always kind of nice, though, especially if you've got a place to stay in Harrison. I've never actually stayed in Harrison. I've just kind of gone out there for, like, one-day visits, like when they used to do the sandcastle competitions.
Yes!
And stuff like that.
The sandcastle competitions are, like, one of the most vivid memories of Harrison that I have as a kid. But, yeah, me neither. I had never actually stayed in Harrison. I had only been there for day trips with my parents, and this is my first time driving up there myself as well, and just a really great time. And it's a spooky, well, I don't know if some people could probably describe it as spooky at night, because it's a bit of a liminal space thing, because you're so used to seeing it crowded with people during the day that at night it's very serene.
Oh, really?
Because we went out around like 9 o'clock and came back at around 11. We watched Groundhog Day, which we rented from the front desk. They had a bunch of movies. And I had seen that movie before. Great movie. It's not one of the pieces of media I brought to discuss this episode, but yeah, really good movie, and really brought some ideas to the forefront about trying to be better and more forgiving of my fellow man.
Right.
But yeah, we went out again, just one friend and I, to have a smoke on the beach, and I ended up we ended up coming across someone who needed a woman who needed Advil, and we walked back to the hotel and I gave her some. So yeah, it was a cool night.
Yeah, I guess Harrison doesn't really have that much of a nightlife, I guess, in the sounds of it, eh? It's a lot of just smaller shops and things like that, catering more to
No,
downtown.
yeah, there's a bunch of gift shops and stuff. It's a very touristy spot. Like when we walked out at 9 o'clock, it was already pretty calm. Like there were a couple drunks stumbling around that front street, but yeah, it's either the way, depending on how you look at it, it's a very like calm and serene place at night, or a spooky Silent Hill-esque waterfront town. Anyways, we should probably get to introducing ourselves. My name is Zach, and I love all things geeky, nerdy, and weird of all shapes and sizes. Big or small, good or bad, mainstream or niche, and I'm usually able to find some value in every piece of media that I consume, whether it be that I really like the art style or the music really appeals to me, for instance. If I think I'll dislike something, I usually just avoid it, which means there are still a lot of things that I've never watched or played. As a guy working full-time in his 30s, I do have less free time than I'd like to, so I do have to use it wisely. It doesn't mean that I'm blind to flaws in things, and I'll absolutely acknowledge and discuss them, but I try not to let them ruin my overall enjoyment of something.
And my name is Julianna. I'm a gamer, cosplayer, Free Company co-lead. I've got just too many things I want to play or read, and unfortunately, also not enough time to do it. My gaming interests lie primarily in RPGs and their various subtypes, though I'm particularly fond of the tactical turn-based ones. But honestly, I'll give anything a chance, especially if I've got good company to play with. In regards to cosplay, my two criteria are basically, do I like the character, and two, do they have cool clothes that I can make? Though, admittedly, as I start losing more and more of my free time, a third criteria is slowly sneaking its way in of, do they have a hairstyle that matches mine?
Yeah, as someone who has also cosplayed and does not enjoy wearing wigs, I can sympathize with that. And you and I have been friends for almost 20 years now?
More than 20 years now.
Yeah, right. I have spent almost, twice as long living on this earth knowing you than I have not knowing you.
Basically.
Yeah, thank you very much, Julianna, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on this thing.
Oh, totally. It's my pleasure.
How much podcasting experience do you have?
I'm gonna be honest, not a lot. I've always favored music when it comes to listening things over podcasts, if only because of the fact that, when it comes to information retention, verbal is, my weakest form of it. So, unfortunately, I used to sometimes try to do audiobooks or try to do podcasts, but I'd realize it would almost literally be, in one ear and out the other ear. Yeah,
that's totally fair. I can definitely understand that. I have had medium podcast experience, both as a listener and as a participant, I guess. I started out with a show in Vancouver called West Coast Geeks vs. Nerds, now known as Geeks vs. Nerds Vancouver, although due to the pandemic they haven't done anything in several years, although I dream that they will return. It was a debate style comedy show recorded live, and I started out as a big fan and eventually became a debater on the show. And I also have a friend with a YouTube show, and we once tried recording a podcast offshoot of that, where we discussed series of video games, and I once acted as a Castlevania lorehead for a 2.5-hour Castlevania episode. Yeah, I like podcasts. I really enjoy listening to them while I'm at work or doing something that I don't need to be paying attention to anybody.
Right. Yeah, for me, unfortunately, work usually requires that I be very mentally engaged almost the entire time. So unfortunately, trying to follow a story along is not terribly feasible for me. I basically, for ones that I have listened to before, I've usually tried to find a transcript online, or I would really just be listening to that specifically while not doing anything else.
Right. I like listening to a wide variety of podcasts, although sometimes I will go... I have gone months without listening to any, only to come back to them, like, in full force. It really depends on my situation and what job that I can get away with listening to them at, because I find them a really great time passer. I enjoy comedy and discussion, although sometimes I appreciate a good true crime series. So this is the Miscellaneous Media segment of the podcast where we talk about things non-gaming related. That is movie, TV, anime, manga, etc. So have you watched or heard much about Sandman?
It's on the list. I've heard some very good things about it. So it's on my to-do list of things to watch. I feel like Neil Gaiman's, a lot of his stories that have been adapted have just been very fortunate to have good adaptations. It sounds like Sandman follows that trend. So, and like, Stardust is one of my favorite movies, so.
Oh, I'm not familiar with Stardust.
We might have watched it. It's about a guy named Tristan who wants to, like, prove his love to this girl in his town. And there's, like, a shooting star that falls out of the sky. And he's like, I'm going to go get that for you to show you how much I love you. And he crosses, like, this stone wall, which basically separates, like, normal England from, like, magical England.
Oh.
And he goes and he finds this star, and it turns out the star is a lady, and it's like a fairy tale adventure sort of thing. And there's, like, a B plot that's, like, a fight for succession amongst 7 sons to a king who has just recently passed.
Interesting.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, I've never heard of Stardust before, because Neil Gaiman I think he's more widely known for stuff like Coraline, American Gods, and he's one of the co-writers of Good Omens, whom he wrote with...
That was a really good adaptation, too.
The Amazon Good Omens was very good. And he wrote that along with the author of Discworld, Terry Pratchett. I actually read a couple Discworld novels at the start of the pandemic, and he is very funny. But Sandman is one of the things I think he's best known for, which is a comic series that he wrote. I believe it was for Vertigo. It's because it is connected to the DC Comics universe. And the comics ran from 1989 to 1996. And I remember seeing them at the library, I think. But it's never a series that I have touched, save for one spin-off book, I believe called Sandman Dream Hunters, which is written by Gaiman, but the art for that is done by Yoshitaka Amano, who is one of the main artists for Final Fantasy, and as well as Vampire Hunter D. But yeah, I binged this series in about 3 to 4 days, and it was very good. I think you'll like it. I highly recommend it, and I suggest getting on that soon, because there is much anxiety over whether or not this series will be renewed for a second season, and that is highly dependent on view time, because it had quite a high VFX budget. Yeah, but it covers, I believe, the first 2 major arcs of the comic, and it is very... I keep saying it's very good. Yeah, I haven't read the comic yet, despite being aware of it for such a long time. I did open up the first issue online just to see how things visually kind of lined up with the first episode of the series, and it seems fairly faithful from what I can tell. I mean, obviously Dream isn't like pasty white like the rest of the Endless, and his hair is a bit less floofy, but I think story-wise it seems to follow things quite well.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah. I'll try to get that. I'll try to get to that one sooner than later in that case. Yeah. Especially if they're still not sure about if a second season's going to happen or not.
Yeah, the bits that I loved the most, and I'm not gonna spoil. I don't want to spoil anything of this show for you, just because it is going to be a good time. But a major villain is played by David Thewlis, who played Remus Lupin in the Harry Potter movies.
Oh.
And he is fantastic. He is very intimidating in a weird way. Like, I feared for the people around him. And apparently he's based off like an old like goofy Justice League villain. But this is just like a non-super villain version of him. Like, he still has the MacGuffin that gives him his powers, but it's a lot darker, I think. So yeah, I highly recommend that.
Well, on that like topic of Netflix things, like I somewhat recently finished up Umbrella Chronicles, not Umbrella Chronicles. Oh man, Resident Evil. That was not a good
Umbrella Chronicles.
Resident Evil show was not a good show either. Oh boy.
I did not touch that show, and I do not plan to.
I did like 2 episodes. We're like, why? They make all of these.
Wow, I'm surprised you even tried it.
My roommate finished it, like begrudgingly finished it. They make a lot of pop culture references that just like didn't really need to be there and kind of take you out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, not Umbrella Chronicles. Umbrella Academy. I finished up Umbrella Academy.
That is okay. That is one goof I may leave in. That was pretty funny.
Umbrella Academy's handled itself much better than the Resident Evil did. But yeah, its 3rd season is interesting. So the kind of general promise of it is there's still like at a really, really base level is superhero saving the world in a really base level, but it's a little bit heavier than that.
Yeah, I have not watched more than like the first episode or 2 of the first season, so I only know the basic premise is that, you know, they were super powered orphans who were adopted by this rich guy who was just a complete piece of work.
Yeah, pretty much. And then he trained them up to do like unlock their powers and protect the world and yada yada yada, your typical fare. But then they're all kind of like super jaded. Very angry.
Like there's a lot of
trauma.
Isn't this is created by Gerard Way,
the lead
isn't
vocalist from My Chemical Romance.
So that would explain some things.
The TV series does.
Gerard, I wonder if Gerard's okay.
The comic book series, though, like the TV series does overlap in arcs in the comic book series. When I looked into the comic book series, there is like a lot more like what the heck is like insanity going on in that book.
I would not be surprised. Usually, the comic book is the rawest form of any piece of media.
But yeah, season...
If it's based on a comic.
But yeah, season 3, like, they do their stuff in season 1, it's like save the world. And season 2 is like also save the world, but they go back in time. And season 3 is still ends up being a save the world thing, but it's almost like a what if scenario. Like they go from season 2, they make it back to their regular time, but like at least their regular year, but their timeline is like totally skewed. Like they're really not supposed to exist in the timeline that they're in. Or they exist but not in the same capacity. They don't know where their other selves are. Without, like, spoiling too much.
Okay.
But yeah, they essentially meet, like, another superhero group that are, like, everything that they should have been, but failed to be.
Right. Okay.
With, like, an alternate version of their father.
Who's not a piece of work.
He's still kind of a piece of work, but for reasons he's a little bit more mellowed out.
Okay, well that's good. So you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. There's a lot of, like, there's a few characters that have to come to terms with things. Like, there's one who's, like, married. Well, hers is a little bit weird. She had, like, a daughter in her original timeline, was married to a different guy when they were shunted back in time, and then tried to go find her daughter in, like, the recent, like, the current day timeline that they find themselves in season 3, and she goes back to her old house and everything, and, like, sits down on the bed and, like, wakes up her daughter, and, like, it's some little girl who looks at her, basically just starts screaming because she has no idea who she is, and
God.
the parents run in, and it's like, oh, well, damn. This is not my kid or family anymore, and she's, like, kind of ruined by it. Not like as a character, but not like as a character arc. She's just as a person is kind of ruined by this fact. She has lost her daughter. She has lost the man that she married in the past, and she like finds his obituary and stuff like that. But there's a few characters that deal with like loss of loved ones and basically in relation to past seasons and things like that. But it's a really interesting season, and same case, trying not to spoil it. I really like the ending. It sounds like that they want to do a season 4, but I'd honestly be happy with how it ended in season 3, because it's an odd one to say that, like, on one hand you could see it as everybody wins, but on the other hand you could almost see it as like only this one guy here wins.
Oh.
And everyone else is just kind of like, what? But it's good. It's different.
Cool.
I could just leave it at season 3 being the end and be perfectly happy with it, but I am curious to see what happens with season 4.
Have they been renewed?
I don't think it's been renewed yet. It's just that the showrunners, have plans, like an overarching plan for season 4, but I don't think they've gotten the green light on it yet.
Yeah, I believe the creators of Sandman are preparing, even though they have not been given the green light yet.
Yeah.
So hopefully both of those shows get renewed.
I'm hoping, yeah. But I just considering what happens at the end of season 3, I don't really know what they're going to do with season 4, because a big factor of what that show is gone. Not necessarily in a bad way, but it's gone.
Okay. Alright, moving from Netflix, but we'll get back to it. Moving from Netflix to the stage, I saw Midsummer Night's Dream on Bard on the Beach last weekend.
I haven't been to that in so long. I feel like it's gotta be like 15 years, like on a field trip with school, since I went to Bard on the Beach.
This was my first time, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had never been to Bard on the Beach before. So, Bard on the Beach is Western Canada's largest professional Shakespeare festival, and it has ran out of Van A Park in Vancouver since it started in 1990 with a single production of Midsummer Night's Dream. And Midsummer Night's Dream premiered in 1605, making it 417 years old. And it was also the first play of Shakespeare that at least I studied in high school. I think you were in a different English class.
Considering we went to the same high school, I think Midsummer Night's Dream was just the English curriculum for, 9th grade English.
Yeah.
Or 8th grade English? I can't remember which grade it was.
It was definitely 9th grade for me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh, right, because I think 8th grade was Romeo and Juliet, wasn't it? I think we had to do I think every year, no matter whose class you were in, always had at least the same Shakespeare play that had to be read. I think.
Maybe. I don't remember doing any Shakespeare in 8th grade. I'm pretty sure it started in 9th.
Oh, then maybe it was Midsummer's Night, Romeo and Juliet, and then Macbeth.
It was
and then
Macbeth
Hamlet.
and then Hamlet. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe we didn't do it in 8th.
Yeah. Because those are the 4 that I remember doing. Yeah, I would say that I'm not a huge fan of Shakespeare. I don't dislike it. I think Shakespeare's fine. I respect it. I think it has been circle jerked a little by academia, and it's held on maybe too high of a pedestal, but I had a really great time at this production. Like I said, it was my first time at Bard on the Beach, and this happened on the main stage, and the set design was simple, but there was an effect later on in the second half that impressed me. They had a rising platform in the center of the stage with a fog maker, and I was like, ooh. And the back of the stage, there were 3 window frames that stained glass windows would have gone, but the bars weren't fully formed, and that is actually how the dancers who played the fairies, they first entered the stage at the beginning of the play. They one of them peeks their head from behind the window, and then they enter. And
that's cool.
I was like, oh, that's really neat. I didn't realize that there's scaffolding behind that the windows were open. The windows did give a view into the back of the park, so sometimes you'd see someone riding a bicycle or jogging by. But it was I was fairly impressed by the setup that they had there. Me and a friend got tickets because my aunt actually volunteers at Bard on the Beach and was able to reserve us some. Otherwise, it's not something that I probably would have bought tickets for of my own volition, but I am glad that I went. They did some interesting gender swapping. Lysander, one of the Athenian lovers, was not only played by a woman, but identified as a woman.
Oh, interesting.
And I always like that. I appreciate a good gender swap. A band I really like from England that does revisionist mythology does that sometimes. They're called the Mechanisms. And it also kind of, because Lysander is the man that the dad of God, what is Hermia? I think is her name. Yeah, the father of Hermia disapproves of Lysander and wants his daughter to marry Demetrius, and it gives it lends to some like homophobia tones, which does make sense, I suppose, for why her father would disapprove, even though the play is set in Athens in ancient Greece, when I think same-sex relationships were far more normalized, I believe. But I still thought it was a cool tidbit. Bottom, the Weaver from the group of players from Athens, she also was played and identified as a woman, and I think she was my favorite character and actor in the production. She was hilarious. There were two very funny instances, because I love when things in live theater don't go according to plan.
Oh no.
One of them, fortunately nothing bad happened. Nobody got hurt. The first one is funny because, one of the plot points is that the Athenian players want to put on a production of Pyramus and Thisbe on a full moon, and they want to figure out what day is a full moon with a calendar. And they usually ask the crowd for a calendar, and someone will volunteer their phone, and usually they'll use that. At the play that we went to, someone in the audience actually brought a paper calendar.
That's great.
Yeah. So that was really funny. And when the players were putting on the production of Pyramus and Thisbe, Bottom, playing Pyramus, is threatening people with a fake sword, and she swung the sword, and the blade came free of the handle.
Oh no. It didn't hit anybody, did it?
It did fly into the audience. I don't think it hit anybody.
Oh no.
Yeah. Ironically, roughly in the area of the guy who volunteered the calendar. But yeah, it was a good time, and I really enjoyed it. I even bought a shirt because it was on sale. It looks like a fighting game character select menu, with a bunch of various Shakespeare characters, and player 1 is Juliet holding a staff, and she's facing off against player 2, who is
Lady Macbeth,
brandishing a dagger, and the logo says Super Shakespeare Fighter 2.
That's great.
And I'm not, like I said, I'm not even a particularly big fan of Shakespeare, and I'll tell you a little secret, I absolutely suck at Street Fighter, but I still bought it because I thought it was a really cool shirt. Though I am dreading someone inevitably asking me about it.
About either Shakespeare or Street Fighter.
Yeah. That's fine. So, you and I watched Great Pretender on Netflix.
I love that show. I love that show so much.
I really enjoyed this one, too. So, Great Pretender is an anime by Wit Studio, known for Attack on Titan, Vinland Saga, Ranking of Kings, and recently Spy Family. And it's a series about a group of con artists who rob rich assholes. And it's very funny and extremely well drawn and animated. I really like the art style of this show.
Yeah, the color palettes and stuff they pick for the environments and the characters all just really, pop.
Yeah, the backgrounds look like they probably are digital photographs that have been, filtered and painted over, but they are done in such a way, in such a style, that I really enjoyed it. And I love character expression, and something I really like about how characters are drawn in this show is just the way their mouths are shaped. Sometimes, I love when Edamura there's just like a bunch of like jagged lines at the end of his mouth. And the bit in the English dub they did in the first episode, I thought was really cool.
Yeah, when I saw it the first time, I actually watched that part in like 4 different languages just to see how they play through it.
That's awesome.
And it's a consistent joke bit that they keep throughout like every language variation of that show that I watched.
That's funny.
Same case with the like for instance we had parts of that show that were just like definitely characters speaking in a foreign language, so like that entire section was dealt with in Mandarin, even though we were watching the English dub for it.
Right. No, that was very cool. What is your, like, where do you stand on subs and dubs?
I tend to give the dub a shot first.
Sometimes it depends how things go. If, for instance, like Madoka Magica, for instance, I watched that one subbed because it hadn't been dubbed yet. When the dub came out, it was a short enough series, I gave it a try, but I was so used to hearing the Japanese voices already that I couldn't quite get into the dub. But then, like, on the flip side of that, like, I watched Cardcaptor Sakura with the original English dub that we had.
Yeah.
And then was never really able to watch it in Japanese, because I remember seeing the complaint years back about how, like, Sakura sounds too old to be, like, a 12-year-old or something like that, but she was literally voiced by a 12-year-old.
Yeah, right.
So there is admittedly a degree of, like, squeaky Japanese that I just don't care for in subtitled versions, especially because I feel like a little bit more often now English dub shows are trying to get kid actors when they can to fill in child roles. So I know some people are like, they compare the sub to the dub. It's like, oh yeah, they sound too old. It's like, no, but they're literally like the Alphonse Elric is voiced by like a 14-year-old.
Right.
Speaking into a bowl.
I think dubs, like English dubs, have definitely come so far in the last 30 years, especially when we compare it to stuff from the 90s or even further back in the 80s.
Yeah, like
there are some bad dubs.
Like I can understand the anger towards English dubs for shows like if we say like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon, for instance, any of those 4-kids shows that got super butchered for their English localization. But we seem to be trending away from that in the past like 15, 20 years now, that I think it's I personally don't have any problems with watching English dubs on things. It's not like I have problems watching with subtitles. Like, I can read just as... I usually have subtitles on if it matches the dub track.
Right.
Just for the sake of catching everything. But, no, I'll tend to trend towards dub over sub. Sometimes I like hearing how they localize things for, like, jokes and stuff like that. Like, Full Metal Alchemist has this very interesting joke when, like, Gracie, I think her name is, Hugh's wife, Gracie, something like that, is having their daughter, and Edward runs up to Winry, and I think, like, the Japanese verb to be born starts with the syllables uma, and he just repeats that a few times over, and Winry has, like, a picture of, like, a horse trotting above her head, because if you don't use the full verb to be born, which I think is umaremasu, then Uma is he just sounds like Edward saying horse over and over again. And I'm like, I don't know how they're going to translate this into English, but I flipped it over and saw the English version. And same thing, Edward comes up, and I guess the line he tries to say is, the baby is coming. But he just gets there and he's like, bay, and Winry, same case, horse is above her head because it's in the animation. And she's like, I don't get it, a bay is a horse. What has that got to do with anything? He's like, the baby's coming! I'm like, you know what?
worked out fine. Localization, they've had a lot of practice now. I trust that they'll get most jokes to land, and especially of how, like, globalized anime has become, I feel like they may be a bit more careful with their jokes now, and keeping in mind that it is likely going to other countries.
Yeah, now that anime is such an industry now, I think they have to be a lot tighter with it. They don't have as much freedom as they used to.
Yeah.
Like, Black Butler has an OVA that has a really, I think, an awkward joke that I don't think ever really translated, if I remember correctly. It's like, the main character is on a stage, they're doing a stage play, I think it might have been Hamlet or something akin to that, and he's supposed to have a soliloquy. I can't really say that word correctly. But anyways, the Japanese term for that, its first few syllables sound really, really similar to cephalopod. So the people on the side who are trying to remind him what to do hold up a picture of a jellyfish. But it doesn't... I don't remember if that joke actually translated in English. I'd have to double check, but I think it was a really awkward translation.
Some things are really difficult to get across. But yeah, I usually... It depends for me, too. Like, I don't hate reading subs, and, like, some series that I enjoy are a bit too obscure to get English dubbed. Not that I'm trying to sound like a hipster. But it also depends, like, on the show itself and what if I'm working on something or doing something else and it's just something out in the background, then I'm definitely going to have it in English. But a couple months back, I watched Neon Genesis Evangelion for the first time in my life, and I went to pains to watch that in original Japanese and not the Netflix release of that, because that was a little bit butchered. There was a case of some gay erasure, and
with Kaoru?
Yeah, and because of the ending theme, because I didn't know this until I started watching the show. There are 26 individual versions of Fly Me to the Moon that they use for every episode.
Oh, really? They got a new recording for every ending?
For everyone.
Oh, that's interesting. And that's the original Japanese, or that was the original, or like the original dub managed to license that?
I think the original dub managed to license it, but this one didn't. And they did redub it for Netflix.
Right.
But yeah, that was really cool, and I understand that, like, getting the licenses to all 26 versions for a re-release, probably a pain, but it wasn't something that, like, it was a piece of media that I wanted to see in its purest form, right. So I went to watch it in its original Japanese, and with director's cuts for some of the episodes. Yeah, great Pretender.
Oh, though, quick note on the note of the dub versus sub thing, I will watch JoJo in both languages. Like,
oh yeah,
in its entirety.
JoJo is one show that is perfectly fine watching it in either language, because in the Japanese you get the English, which is hilarious, but if you watch it in English, you get the weird localized names for the characters and stands because they can't break copyright infringement.
I just live for, okay, like the Golden Wind, some of them I felt could have been a little bit more, like, better references, but like, I don't know, like Mirror Man's not bad, and Zipper Man, I was like, yeah,
Zipper Man!
But fine, not really. But, like, oh my god, I live for the stupid ones, like Boy Man. Or, like, Flaccid Pancake for Limp Bizkit.
Baby Head. Yeah, Netflix just released the second batch of 12 episodes of Stone Ocean, and I have not watched any yet, because when they released the first 12, I binged it in a single day like a complete and utter fool. So I'm actually thinking of pacing myself with this next 12 and maybe watching like one per 2 weeks, right, so I can like talk about it once per episode of this podcast.
Anyway,
yeah,
Great Pretender.
Great Pretender was great. You should watch it. It's got good characters. It wraps up nice and neatly in a short time span. What was it, it's only like 22 episodes, I think?
Yeah, each, it follows 4 different arcs, and like the first 3 arcs are maybe
3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah, 3
each.
or 4 episodes, and then the 4th arc is a little bit longer as a 9-episode piece.
Yeah, but there's a lot of backstory in those 9 episodes, and it was a good case.
Team confidence.
Yeah, team confidence. You want to talk about some video games?
Yeah, what have you been playing lately?
So, I recently got started with the help of a friend on a Legend of Zelda Link to the Past randomizer.
Oh! Okay.
Yeah. And so far, it has been really interesting. There's a website that you use, and you upload an original Japanese version of the ROM, and it gives you a bunch of options for things, and some of those options are like menu and text speed, heart color, and what character you play as.
Wait, the text speed gets randomized?
No, you're able to set it to like on a slider, like slow, very fast.
Oh, okay.
So bringing up the menu in my game takes like half a second.
Mm.
It just like whoop, and it's on screen. But they have a huge list of character sprite edits for Link. So naturally, I went for Sonic the Hedgehog. And it's very funny. When he dies and falls down, there's like a pile of rings around him.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah, it's been really fun so far. I was able to get like maybe 30 to 40% of Link's inventory before even entering a dungeon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There is a program that you have to... Getting it set up is a little bit of a pain. I'm using a program called Emo Tracker that has a map of the light world and the dark world, and it has little boxes to show every location that there are chests, and it's color coded based on your progression. So green means it's fully accessible. Yellow means you can technically access it if you use like a glitch or sequence break of some kind.
Okay.
And then I think orange is like partly accessible, and blue is like you can see it but can't get to it. Like I started out with a sword like in Link's house, so that was a very lucky pull because I can't imagine playing through Zelda without one. And so I've been very fortunate. I have things like the hammer, the thunder spell, I have the bow, the boomerang, I have the moon's pearl already, so I can travel freely between Light World and Dark World, because if you have the hammer, there is a Dark World entrance right above Kakariko Village. And I just finished my first dungeon a couple days ago, and that was Thieves' Hideout. I did enter Eastern Palace, which is the sequentially the first dungeon that you play in a normal game of Link to the Past, but I was only able to get so far.
Right. So, I haven't actually... I've never actually played, like, a randomizer before. I don't do a lot of emulation, period. So is there, like, a guarantee or some sort of coding in there to make sure you don't get, like, soft-locked out of an entire area? Or, like, unable to complete the game because you just didn't get the right item?
I am not sure if it's possible to completely, like, lock you out of progression. I suppose it's possible, but I would figure that they have precautions for that, and you can set different settings for it. Like there's a setting called key sanity, because in a normal randomizer run, keys are independent for like every dungeon. Like, you'll only find keys in a dungeon for that dungeon.
Oh, okay.
But if you turn on key sanity, suddenly every key in the game is, like, shuffled into the mix with every other chest and item in the game.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that has been a very cool time. What have you been playing?
I've mostly been playing Splatoon since it came out like a week ago.
That's Splatoon 3, right?
That's Splatoon 3, yeah. So,
yeah.
I haven't been playing as much as I'd like, but I've been spending a lot of time in Salmon Run.
Nice.
I haven't actually touched rank yet. I basically just like burned my way through to level 4 to unlock Salmon Run. And then have been grabbing, like, anybody who will give me the time of day and listen to me to come play Salmon Run with me.
Are you still maining a charger?
Well, Salmon Run works by, you don't bring in your pre-existing gear and you don't bring in your weapons. You actually, like, you have a work uniform, and, the weapons that you have are a set of 4 that are just, like, they change every day and a half or so, but you get randomized
okay, so they're
into one of those.
They're on a rotation.
Yeah, you get randomized into one of those 4 weapons. There hasn't been a charger yet. The sniper tasers.
Was Salmon Run in the first Splatoon game?
It wasn't. So if you never, I don't remember.
No,
I don't think you bought 2.
I have not ever touched Splatoon 2, so I never got to try Salmon Run then.
Yeah. So it's a PvE mode. You basically get flown out to this work site where, like, all of these salmonid, they're called, rush the shore, and you need to collect golden eggs for some guy named Mr. Grizz who talks to you through, like, a bear statue. And it's one of those, like, it's a wooden bear carving that's got, like, a salmon in its mouth. And that's his icon.
Oh, I see.
But you collect golden eggs from him, and those golden eggs drop from, like, boss salmonid, which are, well, the big boss ones. They just have a bunch of variations. Like, there's one that's kind of funny. It shoots out like this ray of ink that will just pierce through like the whole stage and fly across the stage, and this thing sits in a tower made out of like a whole bunch of like pots and pans sitting on a burner. So you have to run up to it, and you like if you shoot it, you'll just start knocking all of the pots and pans out until you can shoot the salmonid at the top by the time it hits the ground, and then it'll like burst into a thing of like 3 eggs that you have to collect and bring over to the basket.
Cool.
But it gets you rank up in that PvE thing too, and it gets surprisingly intense sometimes. There's a guy I was playing with, and the 2 times we got this thing called the Glowfly event, which is just like these fireflies surround one of the 4 players, and they just get bum rushed by salmon. And it happens so quickly that like the 2 times it occurred to us, like our whole team just like immediately wiped in probably the first like 5 seconds. Because I wasn't expecting it at the level we were at, and he had never seen it before.
Question.
Yeah.
That just occurred to me. Why did salmon not evolve into humanoid form in the Splatoon universe?
I'm not really sure. I know people were hoping that we'd get a new playable character type and it'd be like humanoid salmon. Although I've heard that like the Splatoon 3 storyline does have something a bit more to do with the salmonid. But maybe to a point that it makes Salmon Run a little bit awkward from a moral standpoint. I'm not really sure. I haven't finished the campaign. But you do get in part of your character customization, like you make your character, and but then you also pick the look of your little buddy, which is like a small fry salmonid. It's just like this itty bitty fish, like chubby fish thing with like the goofiest eyes, and you like pick its hairstyle.
Oh, that's cool. Does it like follow you around in game?
Yeah, you see it it pops up in the plaza here and there. It doesn't follow you into like the turf war battles and stuff like that. It might follow you into the campaign. Like I said, I really just did like enough turf wars to get myself to level 4, and then it went immediately into Salmon Run.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I never played Splatoon 2, and I never picked it up. And by the time I regretted it, it was too late into the game's like life cycle.
Right.
I think that's something I'm not super fond of with like seasonal games, I guess, that get like live service updates, because to get the most out of the game, you're kind of pressured to buy it from day one.
Yeah, I guess it depends for what reason. Like, for Splatoon 1, most definitely, because, like, we only had Turf Wars, we only had, like, 3 ranked modes, and then it was Splatfest. There was no PvE or anything like that. Splatoon, the funny thing is, those servers are still running. You can still play
Splatoon 1?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can still play Splatoon 1 online.
Wow.
Don't know how many people you'll find, but you could. And then, yeah, once the Splatfests were over, that's kind of, you had your ranked and you had your turf war, and that was about it. Splatoon...
God, it's been like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Splatoon 2 has the PvE, so and an extra ranked mode as well. And then, like, the campaign and the second campaign. So, at least if you had that, there was stuff to keep doing. So, and then 3 has... There's a lot of stuff for 3. The PvE is open 24/7 now, because in Splatoon 2, it was like a job, so it only had working hours. Not necessarily like 9 to 5, but there were working hours where it'd be closed otherwise. It's open 24/7 now. You still have your standard normal mode for Turf Wars. Ranked Battle has like basically their equivalent of For Glory and For Fun, wherein you can play it solo, or like the more like for fun one you can team up with up to a group of 4. There's like a card game that's like built into there that I haven't tried yet.
Huh.
There's a lot more customization. Like you've got like a locker that you can customize. You can buy decorations or throw your weapons in there and stuff like that.
Oh, that's
which is pretty
cool.
Fun. So at least. Yeah, like Splatfest were the things that brought a lot of people together. But at least, like, when servers for Splatoon 3, like, support of the live updates officially ends, and, like, I think they're planning to carry it on at least 2 years. So at least when that officially ends, there's still the PvE is up all the time. The card game is still there. The customization is still there. Because, yeah, the Splatfests were fun events. But in the end, the Splatfests are just Turf Wars.
Right.
So.
Well, maybe I will pick that up when I have cash, before it comes to the point where I'm like, no, it is too late.
Well, the very first Splatfest is happening next weekend.
I did see an announcement about that.
And yeah, and they're like 3-way battles now.
I noticed. And that, how is that going to play out?
So you have like a bunch of your battles will still be like one-on-one for teams. But then you sometimes get what's called like tricolor battles, which is like all 3 teams going at once for turf war coverage. There is
I guess it's fine that it's 3 teams, because it's just based on whoever has the most like ink on the field.
Yeah, basically. So there's still there's some balances that they're doing. There was a recent patch that I think is changing the frequency of how often the tricolor battles come up. But yeah, this is they had like a global test fire, which was basically a rock paper scissors a Splatfest.
Yeah.
And yeah, this coming one next week is like, if you were on a deserted island, would you want to bring gear, grub, or fun?
What team do you think you're gonna pick if you participate?
I'm on Team Gear. I'm a little
Of course you're on Team Gear.
I'm a little too pragmatic to not be Team Gear. I've got another friend who's picked Team Gear, and I'm like, okay, buddy, I need to know, have you picked Team Gear because you're pragmatic about gear, or have you picked Team Gear because you're a Shiver stan? And he's like, yes.
I'm sorry, what?
One of the idols, her name is Shiver.
Oh,
and he's just got
and I'm assuming that is the group that she's representing?
Yeah, and he's just got like a video game character crush on her, basically.
Right, gotcha. That's fun. Now, I think we should head into what will hopefully be an ongoing segment. Welcome to Eorzea Corner. So this is Eorzea Corner, where Julianna and I discuss Final Fantasy XIV Online, A Realm Reborn, and all of its expansions.
Not that we're done the game yet by any means, but...
Oh no, I just checked today. I've almost been playing for like just under 2 months, and I still have not finished A Realm Reborn.
Yeah, I know, like, some people be like, oh, you need to get to this expansion, it's so good, but honestly, just take your time with it.
Is it the award-winning Heavensward?
I think they might have, except for, like, I think Shadowbringers and Endwalker have also been award-winning.
Yeah, I know, but I just love how anytime, like, someone refers to Heaven's Sword, they always have to preface it with award-winning.
I think the reason is because there have been so many advertisements. Once they changed the free trial, like, since the last time you and I played that free trial, they changed it, because it used to be you capped at level 50 and you could finish the base game, but that was it. But they expanded it to include the award-winning Heavensward expansion, and that's just how they kept advertising it. The critically acclaimed Final Fantasy XIV Online and the award-winning Heavensward expansion. So it's just become a meme.
So I remember trying out that trial extremely briefly. In fact, I have barely any memory of it.
I know. Because we were playing together, we did not get very far. I feel like we maybe got to level 20. I don't actually even know if I unlocked Black Mage. I think I might have still been on the base Thaumaturge class.
Since then, like, did you drop off after that trial and then pick it up again?
So what happened for me is, at the time I got into it, it's because an ex was playing it with great regularity, and the original plan was I was supposed to play with him, but he kept playing with other people without me, so I just like looped you and another person into trying the free trial with me. And then after one particularly goofy night, I think I was just like, I'm kind of done, this isn't for me, the other guy's not playing with me, and I went on hiatus for a couple years, I guess. The thing that got me to actually buy the full game proper and start again was twofold. One, Stormblood released, and Red Mage came with it. I'm like, cool, I love the Red Mage, it's in the game. I'm still not ready, whatever, it's fine. But the cincher for me was Shadowbringers was announced, and the Vera were shown off in trailer. And I'm like, I can be a Vera Red Mage. Okay, frick, I'm back in, and that's when I pre-ordered Shadowbringers. I was like, give me my bunny, and I'm just gonna hit Red Mage as soon as I humanly can. And this is what I'm going to play.
And you've been playing it regularly ever since?
Yeah, pretty much. It's Realm Reborn, Heavensward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, Endwalker. And Endwalker was where they finally wrapped up everything, like last year.
Endwalker came out last year?
Yeah, December last year. So, despite the fact that I picked up this game again and bought it with Shadowbringers like 3 years ago, I've really only just gotten to Shadowbringers like 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
The FC lead has jokingly referred to me playing as, like, stopping to smell every single rose in the garden.
Yeah, I always feel when I'm playing MMOs like I'm progressing at a slower than average pace, and I'm sure, like, two months in, my highest level job is like level 54, 55 Dragoon, and that's as far as I have gotten. And I don't think I have been playing it as intended, because I think because Final Fantasy XIV is a unique MMO in which it allows you to change classes on the fly, but it treats every class like a new character. I have been just power leveling Dragoon up to a high level so that I can, when I finally reach the award-winning Heaven's Sword, I can join you in some of the later game content. But I am nearly 20 levels above where I am in the story quest right now.
Oh, honestly, that's perfectly fine. Like, when I hit Heavensward, because Heavensward is the 50 to 60, when I hit Heavensward, I was already, like, level 61.
Right.
It's... I really don't think anyone could say that you're playing things right or wrong, unless you're literally trying to do, like, one of those big boss fights and you do a mechanic wrong. But as far as, like, your leveling, your story progression, however you want to have fun with it, because there is so much stuff in that game, I don't think there's really a right or wrong way to play it. Like,
yeah.
Like, I got super distracted for, like, a solid 3 weeks, where instead of doing, like, anything story related, I raced chocobos. I raised, like, a perfect racing chocobo for 3 weeks.
Wow.
Just cuz.
That's awesome.
And, like, there's all, like, the crafter things. Like, I've got another friend who, we play the story together, and he's, like, you cannot take a crafter into the story main scenario quest, but he just, like, hard geared into crafters and has, like, a bunch of them up in their 80s already, because this is just what he likes to do. And then sometimes we, like, stop and play the story for a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
I like how
like,
kind of open-ended it is, and it seems like it really does open up in the later expansions, because now they have a game mode that's similar to, like, the Animal Crossing Islands.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that would generally interest me, but I think it's really cool. Also, I should also clarify that I'm not the biggest fan of MMORPGs, and unlike Shakespeare earlier, like, I have had gripes with prior MMOs. Like, I think that they are huge time sinks, and I don't think that progression has to be as slow as it is.
Right.
Or at least as it feels for me. Like, there are definitely some parts in early MMOs, and unfortunately early MMOs is what I'm most familiar with, that just feel like a slog. Like, you only just, like, the game's story treats you like you're an important character, but you feel like a glorified courier and pest controller.
Yeah.
And I have heard that does, like, lessen up in later parts of FF14, and I already do feel like I'm a bit more important than most games.
Yeah, it was it's an interesting thing, because we were playing it before they did a lot of this overhaul stuff. Like, the first time we tried it, like you said, we were, like, over-glorified, like couriers. Because it'd be like, "Can you go get me this? Hey, go get me that." They cut out a lot of that fetch quest bloat from A Realm Reborn, like a year ago or something like that. There's several quests. There's still a lot.
There's still enough to be annoying sometimes, and sometimes they lampshade it, like, talk to NPC. talk to NPC again. Talk to NPC, ... again. Talk to NPC yet again. And it's like, game, I see you trying to be cute and funny, but it doesn't make this any better.
You know what you need to do when you eventually get to the award-winning Heavensward?
Mm-hmm.
You need to grab a Dark Knight job. Because the Dark Knight mentor... the Dark Knight job quest story is surprisingly heavy.
Okay.
It might be... I feel like it's the job quest that spent the most amount of time just in my head. No, the mentor that you have for that has a very... you have some moments in there where some guy comes up to you. It's like, I need your help with, like, some trivial fetch quest type thing. And, like, you have your dialogue options and you say you'll help them out. And, like, your mentor is like, seriously? You realize you have better things to do than this, right?
I love that. I can't wait for that. Yeah, I believe that is the job that my roommate is currently striving for, because you, like, 4 months ago when we did our test recording, like, you talked heavily about FF14 and I had zero context, and then Square Enix did like a 30% off sale. And I caved, and I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And the sale, I bought the game before the sale ended. I am still on the free trial, because fortunately it goes to level 60, I think. Because I caved and got the trial, my roommate renewed his subscription, and another friend of mine renewed their subscription. So, we're all getting back into Final Fantasy XIV. And you may have more than just one new addition to the free company, if they're welcome.
Oh yeah, of course, they're totally welcome.
I am very excited just to join you on map nights.
Well, I guess, how far along are they? Because if they renewed their subscription, if they aren't, like, if they're still sub-level 60 or whatever, then at least we can have, like, a group of us who are all familiar with each other running map things.
My roommate is, he started a new character on Lamia, I think. And or he had a character on another server and then he transferred it, but he has power leveled. He's a bit further than me. I think he is close to the end of Realm Reborn, but he hasn't told me that he's finished it yet. But fortunately, he works a different kind of schedule than me, where he has like 2 24-hour shifts, Sundays and Mondays, so he fortunately has a bit more free time in the middle of the week to play than I do, and I'm only able to get like an hour or two in maybe a day, and I'm not playing every day, unfortunately. These last couple of weeks have been a bit busy, so progress has halted a bit, but I'm still at it. And I'm still going to go at it. I really like my character. One of the last MMOs that I played was Guild Wars 2, and I was disappointed that pole arms were not a possible melee weapon in that game. Because, yeah, technically they have spears and javelins, but they're an aquatic weapon, so you can only use them when you're underwater swimming.
Oh, interesting.
And that was disappointing for me, because I really like polearms. And being a dragoon was a very big appeal for me. And I am playing a male Aura, which I have found out recently, or after the fact, that male Aura are nowhere near as popular as female Aura and a bunch of the other races, but I still like my character design. I really like him. I do wish that I could move his horns up just like a couple inches so they look like Devilman horns, but other than that, I think he's really cool, and I've really enjoyed playing a Dragoon.
Yeah, I've had a conversation with somebody before, and I remember asking him, like, is it really self-centered if I really like the look of my own Vera? Like, I really like the look of my own Vera.
I mean, that's totally fine. Like, I really like the look of my main character, so no, I don't think it's self-centered at all. And I get to live out the fantasy of being a tall dragon man.
Admittedly, though, like, as much as I like the Vera, if for some reason, like, the choice to be one just totally disappeared, I would probably play a Lalafell.
Oh, yeah. Not a Motoi?
No. I think I took the Motoi originally, like, years back when we did the free trial because I didn't like the idea of playing something so short. But the more and more I see Lalafell in action, like, the more
they're growing on you.
Oh, absolutely. They, like, Motoi are very expressive, but I really think the Lalafell have amongst the best emotes in the game because they have such, like, little body to work with. Like,
yeah.
Everything is like a full body expression when they emote.
Yeah, I like Lalafell. Anytime I head into the Waking Sands and to meet with Minfilia for the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, I stop and I say hi to Tataru, even though she usually has the same thing to say. Although right now she is with the rest of the Scions that are held captive by the Garleans, and that's where I'm currently at. We're preparing to head there and break them out of prison.
Admittedly, like the one potential downside of playing a Lalafell, because the person I play the story with is playing a Lalafell, and you have these moments that just, it kind of breaks the seriousness of the story sometimes. Like, we had this one instance of this guy who is, like, kind of being a fake diplomat, trying to be diplomatic, but then had, like, an ulterior motive. And he gets this moment where he kind of has, like, crazy eyes and looks you dead in the eye and, like, threatens you. The only problem is when he does that to a Lalafell character and you're both standing on flat ground, he does, like, the kneel down, like the how not to talk to short people meme kneel down to look the Lalafell in the eye and, like, threaten them. And I'm like, I cannot take you seriously.
That is hilarious.
Or, like, you have other people who, like, and it's just because of the look makes it kind of funny. They'll talk about, like, yeah, the Warrior of Light, the Primal Killer, the, like, this, and all of these grand titles, and then this, like, 3-foot nothing, like, shorty walks up amongst all of these other people who are, like, 5 and 6 feet tall, being like, yes, I am the Warrior of Light.
But I'm the Warrior of Light. What do you mean, Julianna? I thought I was the only one.
There's a thing about that. You'll see.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm excited. So one of my other friends also, I mentioned that I was getting close to the end, and they were like, "Oh man, you were gonna meet the coolest Dragoon in Heavensward. Just wait till you meet Estinian. He's so cool." And I'm like, I have not only met Estinian, I have fought Estinian because he's an NPC in the Dragoon story quest.
Oh, so he already turns up that early, huh?
Yeah, Estinian turns up really early. So I'm excited to see how he turns up in later game, because he's already pretty cool. But yeah, I thought that was really funny.
I don't know how to feel about him sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, dude, could you just not? No. You'll see. No.
Yeah. Who are your favorite members of the Scions?
Okay, so there's this one character you haven't met yet. And she hasn't had a ton of involvement, but I have a soft spot for her. Her name is Kryle.
Okay. Yeah, no, haven't heard of her.
She's a Lalafell with, like, brown hair, and she's kind of got, like, a cat ear hoodie. Kind of speaks almost like a noble lady. But she hasn't had a lot of screen time, and I have a soft spot for her. I'm also quite fond of Alize as she, like, kind of breaks apart from her brother.
Yeah, I haven't seen her.
You don't see a lot of her in the first game, or in the first,
Yeah.
in the base game, but she...
Alphinaud's cool, though.
Yeah, she really comes into her own through, in the later expansions.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like, Thancred and Ishtola.
Ishtola's good too, yeah.
Yeah, Ishtola's pretty cool. Although they did not name Thancred among the captives by the Garleans, so I hope he's still alive. Yeah, there have been parts of this story where I've kind of like rolled my eyes, especially at the beginning, but later, as I keep going, I have been getting more invested into it, and especially when I came back to the Waking Sands and the Scions had been slaughtered, that hit me a bit. Man, the stuff with the Alamegans, too. Like, I don't know if they're gonna come back to that, but...
One of the expansions does deal more with the Alamegans.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll see more involvement involving those displaced people in due time.
'Cause yeah, first there was a bit of like there's some Alamegans in a town, and one has like a festering wound, and nobody in town is willing to help them. Like, you go to somebody, and they're like, oh, the Alamegans didn't pass the trial of the trees. The trees have decided that these people are not worth our help. And I'm like, these trees are racist! So I'm gonna help them. And then there was, I believe, a line of dialogue that heavily implied that one of the Alamegan women had been sexually abused, and that wasn't great.
Yeah, that... I don't remember if it's that particular lady... Like, that context, I don't remember if it was, that something that had happened recently in the game, or she was talking about a history of something that had happened to her previously. But there's a couple of heavy topics like that come up with a few characters, later as well. There are some... Not so much in ARR, and a little bit in Heavensward, but there are some really heavy moments that come up in the later expansions, and some that I still have yet to see, but everybody keeps crowing about it to me. So
yeah, we're both getting caught up. Me more than you.
It's okay. I get distracted very easily. There's someone I met who like only just got into the game maybe 2 months ago, and he's like finished through the end of the game already. But to each their own. You wanna rush your way through it like that? That's fine. Like he basically didn't touch a single crafter, hasn't done any of like the Beast Tribe quests, things like that. He just like he got into that story and he just went for it.
Yeah, I haven't touched crafting any more than just to like get into materia, and once I figured I finally learned how to make materia, I haven't really done anything with it since.
To be honest, I wouldn't worry about crafting too much until you actually have yourself on the paid time and have access to the market board and have access to retainers, because the other person I play with, I was playing the paid version while he was still playing the free trial.
Right.
And but the thing is, he liked crafting. The only problem is crafting fills your inventory so quickly, and some stuff that you couldn't find, for instance, like you can't trade people on free trial, you can't use the market board on free trial, and you don't have access to like your retainers, who are basically extra inventory storage.
Yeah, I did have a lot of items to sell at lesser value than I bought the materials, but
right. But there's once you go into the paid version, like I'd say ride it out for the free trial as long as you can, why not?
Oh,
but
yeah,
once you get to the paid version, there's a lot of really nice like quality of life perks that you get with it.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what I'm taking. I've been taking my time with it in recent weeks, because like once I hit the point where I'm paying a monthly subscription, like I'm gonna want to make sure I get the most out of it.
Yeah. Mind you, the subscription price, considering you're a working adult, the subscription price isn't too bad. There's like a cheaper version. There's like a 3-tier version, but the absolute cheapest one is like, I don't think pays in advance. It just limits the biggest drawback is like it limits the number of characters you can have on a world or a server or something like that.
That's
but I think
fine. I don't see myself ever making another character.
Yeah, right. I'm the same way. I'm like, I can switch all the jobs to this character that I've made and really like already. I'm like,
and
I don't need.
You can visit other servers as long as they're on the same data center.
Yeah.
So
it's the cheapest plan. I think it's like 10 USD or something a month or something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'd probably go with.
But yeah, like we don't have to do treasure map things. I know you can't send tells, which are whispers, to other people, but like, and you can't invite people to a party, but I can invite you to a party.
Yeah,
still.
I know, and you can make me party leader.
Yeah. So no, there's stuff we can do together still, even though you're not done yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I can always pull you to help me with like a story quest or
Oh yeah, totally.
dungeon or something. I have gotten help from my roommate and my other friend.
Right.
Doing that. We did Garuda on Tuesday, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was a little rough.
Was it?
Our other two part, like, our tank was not tanking, and the healer was trying to DPS.
Healers should DPS to a degree. When they don't, if healing isn't needed.
Yeah. That is just, granted, that is just what my roommate says. Like, whenever I am playing, especially with other people, I am just focusing so much on myself and doing the best job I can because I don't want people to judge me.
It's kind of a funny thing because if you oh no, but you don't play healer yet. I was gonna say it can get quite divisive sometimes, but it is, especially in later game stuff when you're doing really tough fights and things like that, it is actually expected that the healer puts out a decent amount of damage.
Yeah.
But the expectation as well is that the rest of your party members are doing their jobs as well, that you don't have to be healing too much.
Right. Yeah, I'm just always so tunnel vision, and it's hard for me to pay attention to my other party members.
In fairness, playing DPS means you don't have to, you have to pay attention a little, but you don't have to pay quite the same type of attention.
No, it's not like I'm managing my party's health bars or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. Like, if as far as MMOs go, I'm enjoying my time with it. Maybe I'm just like Stockholm syndromed at this point, but it's a nice like comfort game to do while like sometimes I'll listen to a podcast, but usually I'll put like a let's play or something that I doesn't need my full attention, but it's like I can kill two birds with one stone. Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I don't know if we'll probably not talk about it to this much length in every episode, but I'll definitely give updates as to what level I am at and where I am at the story. 'Cause yeah, I can't wait to do stuff with you in it.
Mm-hmm.
So last weekend, I played a different kind of MMO RPG, and by that I mean a medium multiplayer offline RPG. I attended Elder Scrolls Adamantia, or Adamantia, as they would probably pronounce it. And if you're an Elder Scrolls fan, you're probably thinking, what is that? That is not something I have ever heard of. That is a LARP, my friend, or a live-action roleplay. I've been a casual on and off LARPer for about 7 years now. Obviously, this was the first time that I had attended an event in like 2.5 years due to the global pandemic, and players were required to submit a negative COVID test.
Interesting.
Yeah, apparently they did have a first event 3 weeks prior that I did not attend. Just because, like, how much do you know about Elder Scrolls?
Elder Scrolls is a series I never got into. I have only barely dabbled in Skyrim.
Yeah, me neither. Like, I am not super fond of Bethesda open world RPGs. I think they're a bit too open-ended for me, and Elder Scrolls especially. I think, like, general fantasy is not one of my favorite genres. Like, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, it's all just kind of generic to me. I know that'll upset somebody, and I'm sorry. Again, as same as you, have only dabbled in Skyrim a little bit, but fortunately, being an Elder Scrolls fan or having a lot of Elder Scrolls knowledge is not a barrier of entry into this game.
Good.
It is set in the 202nd year of the 4th era, for the lore heads listening. I have been brushing up on my Elder Scrolls lore since game, and for those in the know, that is set a year after the beginning of the events of Skyrim, and it is set in High Rock, which is a neighboring province that was the setting for Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, and it is set in a place called Azra's Crossing, and I wasn't planning on attending, but I have a friend who, he is now an ST, or storyteller, which is essentially the LARP equivalent of a dungeon master. Usually LARPs have multiple of those because one person running an event attended by 50 plus people is a nightmare. Yeah, I wasn't planning to attend, but my friend who attended the first game as a Falmore NPC, and a lot of stuff happened, and he was concerned that his character would be assassinated, and so he bribed a couple of us to attend game as bodyguards. And
that's great.
yeah, he at first I was only gonna lend him my bow for somebody else to use, but in the end I was like, yeah, I can show up Friday night for a couple hours before I have to run off to my graveyard shift. And I ended up coming back the next day after I had gotten some sleep after work, and it was really good. I mean, it's hard for me to say, because like this was like their 4th or 5th game, and I have not attended any of the previous games. It's hard to say like what the quality was compared to those ones. And I do, my one minor complaint would have been because I was hired as a marksman. I like shooting a bow because I'm not very good in physical combat.
Okay.
I like to feel useful by, like, shooting projectiles. I'm decent at it from a close distance, at least. But I didn't get to partake in any combat Friday night because I left very shortly after the game had actually started. But Sunday, I arrived at like 1 p.m. and we didn't see any monsters until 6. So that's 5 hours where we're basically making our own fun. And I don't think like they were like STs were doing nothing. I'm sure like that prep had to be done, and there was other stuff happening that I probably missed, because you can't witness everything at a LARP. You only have your one perspective, and that also makes it difficult to kind of tell exactly what happened at a game, because a lot of details you have to pick up from other people.
So, quick question. When
Sure.
you say you didn't see a monster, so like, how do monster encounters work? Does someone act the part of the monster, or?
Yeah, usually STs will be like, okay, it is time. They will have a plan, and they will have crew, which are like a bunch of players who are NPCs currently, because people will tend to do like shifts as their main character and then help out as a crew. And there are incentives for that. Usually if you crew, you get awarded with extra EXP to spend leveling up your character. I didn't get to crew last weekend, but next time I'm definitely motivated to do more crewing because I want to level up my new character. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
It's okay.
Yeah, usually they will tell players like, okay, you are this, you have these stats, and you're to go out and do this. And usually that means like the monsters will like run out into the middle of town and start attacking people, and then suddenly all the PCs are alert and like there's a big fight in the woods or something. And it's usually very chaotic. And another little gripe that I have is when LARP monsters or enemies are immune to mundane damage.
What do you mean by mundane?
So you would go up to, like, say you have, like, I have a sword and a dagger. I would go up to a monster and hit it, and it would say no effect. Okay. Because it is only susceptible to magic or magically infused weapons. Like, sometimes for some encounters, I'm fine with that, especially like higher level monsters, like if you're fighting a big bad or something. But I think this was just like a group of vampires or undead. I'm not even sure exactly what they were, but they were like hooded people with like masks. And like I brought my bow to shoot at things, and I would shoot my arrows, and they would also have no effect. And in that kind of scenario, you have to scramble to find a person with skill in magic who can bless your weapon or whatever. And I was able to get a magic dagger from somebody, but nobody knew the skill necessary to bless a bow, which at least nobody in my that I could find in the moment, because like I said, right. it's quite chaotic when you're in the middle of a fight. Earlier on, before the monsters attacked and we were sort of doing our own thing, another character proposed to our characters that we hold an archery competition. So we had that in the middle of town, and it cost a couple septims to enter, and because people could bet on certain entrants, and I just totally beefed it. We were like 60 paces away from the target, which for normal arrows, probably fine. But these are
LARPing arrows.
I was using LARP arrows, and unfortunately these arrows are not ones that I had wrapped with tape and rubberized as I have in the past. But yeah, it just kinda sucked not being able to feel useful in that moment. And my character did die.
Oh no.
I had taken some damage, and a guy brought me down to 0, and technically, I didn't have to die. Like, because if you're brought down to 0, you are given a 5-minute bleed out counter for somebody to find you and heal you. And it had been a couple minutes, but it hadn't quite been 5. But they told me that I had the choice whether or not I wanted to live or not, and I just decided, nah, I'm good with death.
I'm good with death.
I played not a Thalmor, but I did play an Aldmeri, or a high elf, a young high elf in his late 30s, which is like early teens in the life cycle of an elf. And high elves are quite like pompous and egocentric, and I kind of had to go along with that, and it's not something I'm very good at or feel comfortable with.
Right.
So I wasn't totally feeling this character, which is fine because like I didn't even make the character. Like my friend made it for me last minute, and I didn't hate it, but it was coming to a time in the night when I was tired and I wasn't gonna be useful for very longer, and I had been itching to play a new type of character, so I decided to let Aelor, the Aldmeri, die. But fortunately, I still gained the 2 EXP from attending that I could spend towards my new character, and let me tell you, I am feeling very inspired over the last week to make this new character.
Well, that's good. So does the EXP, like, do you, like, I don't know, I'm just throwing out numbers here, but if your character that died was level 4, do you make your new one at level 4, or do you start down at, like, level 1?
In that kind of a scenario, I'm not sure. I think you would start down at level 1. But it's not easy to die, I think. Like I said, like 5 minutes for someone to find you and heal you, that is pretty generous, I think.
Okay.
But once that happens, then yeah, there's no coming back from that. But fortunately, because this was my first game, and like this character didn't get to rank up at all, they allowed me to get that EXP for it. But what I'm really feeling like playing in future games is a healer, which is weird because the healer is never an RPG archetype that I've been particularly interested in. But I've realized that I'm not particularly great in combat, and I want to break into the more character side of roleplay in LARP, and I'm also not a very confident character role player.
Right.
And I find it difficult to like break into any roleplay that is already like happening, or even to initiate it with somebody. It feels weird. And I'm hoping that by playing a healer and by ingratiating myself as a needed role in the game, like that will incline people to roleplay with me more.
So do you think your stance, do you think you're going to be like one of the kind of angry healers? You're like a jaded healer?
No. I've actually been giving a bunch of thought into this character. So he is going to be like 16, 17. He's a teenager like prodigy, and was like born the son of a like high-ranking mage in the College of Whispers, which is a mage faction. And but their parent is like specializes in destruction and basically like the opposite kind of magic that I'm going for, because I'm trying to go for like full support healer. I'm basically making a white mage, and like even my costume, like I want to make a white mage costume, and I want to make like a big like curled staff and a spell book that's gonna like hang from like a belt around my my shoulder. And I'm going into alchemy too, so I want to make like a potion bag. But character-wise, he's bright. He's an innocent good boy, and he's a little bit naive. but he doesn't like. This portion of the podcast was unfortunately redacted to prevent in-character metagaming, but hey, if you're a member of the BC LARPing community and you're hearing this, thanks for listening. But this group seems decent, at least.
How many people do you have for that group, or that location?
We had around 30 to 40, maybe. Like it was a decent turnout for a LARP. I have been to less populated LARPs. I think they're just because it is a LARP and we've been so starved for events, and I think there's also the draw of it is based on Elder Scrolls.
Right.
Like that is definitely going to draw people who are fond of that franchise. I actually like that it is based on Elder Scrolls. It's quite convenient for me because one aspect that I've always found unfortunate about a bunch of LARPs I've attended, especially longer running LARPs that have their own original world, is that because these games like build a story over a long period of time, like you come into a game and you're hearing bits and pieces of games years past, and I've always wished that there's like a comprehensive guide or wiki to the history of that game, so like I could brush up, and like it would make it easier for new players to roleplay knowing the history. Right. And that makes it quite convenient for me in Elder Scrolls, because I can just bring up the Elder Scrolls wiki and learn about the world. And this game has a Discord server, and one of the channels is for game recaps. So
okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so there will be a way to keep track of things.
So it's okay if you miss a session or two, you weren't there from the very beginning, because at least you can look back and get yourself up to speed then.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So yeah, I am very inspired to keep doing that. I don't know when the next LARP is going to happen. Maybe something may happen before the end of this year, but chances are it's not going to be until spring of 2023. So,
okay.
But that gives me plenty of time to work on an impressive white mage kit.
Is that mainly because of like a weather thing, or?
Yeah, generally a weather thing, and probably like a booking the site thing, because it comes down to the venue as well. Shall we move on to the news?
I don't have anything too exciting going on for news. Like, I've got a couple little things coming up, but
yeah, me neither. It's been for online announcements and stuff, it's been a slow couple of weeks. I think save for the Nintendo Direct that it came out last weekend?
Wasn't it weekend? I feel like it was just earlier this week.
It might have been on Monday,
on like
or
Tuesday or something.
Yeah. No, you're possibly right about that. Because I someone at my work, she is a big Zelda fan, and I came in, I believe, that night, and she was like, "Did you see it?
Tears of the Kingdom."
Yeah. It looks cool. That bit of key art that they put out is very pretty.
Yeah.
And it was only a brief trailer, but they've still showed more of Breath of the Wild, which is coming out in over a year. It's like holiday 2023, and they've showed more of that game than they have showed of the Mario movie, which is supposed to come out in spring. Like,
yeah, I don't know what's going on with that movie.
Neither do I. Like, they have only released a cast list, and that spring of 2023 date, I believe, like, that was delayed a bit already. Right. So I don't know if they're going to delay it more, or if very soon they're just going to drop a trailer. But, you know, seeing how the first Sonic movie went, man, I would give those animators time to possibly react to any outcry, you know? Yeah, I'm not sure how to feel about that. I don't like Illumination just as in general as a studio. Like, it's the stuff they make is like well produced but vapid, like, disposable media. And I hate Minions so much, Juliana. I hate those little yellow bastards so much. But yeah, I'm not sure how to feel about that. They did mention it when Miyamoto was on screen. He said they're putting on finishing touches, so hopefully we'll see something soon.
Yeah, I don't know.
They showed off Bayonetta 3.
Oh, that one I'm quite excited about too.
Yeah, they have that. I forget is her name Viola? Like the new character. She looks kind of punky. She basically looks like a female version of Nero from Devil May Cry.
Was it Viola? I don't remember.
I could be totally misremembering, but
I've kind of been wrapped up in the fact that they're like doing another that they're releasing Tales of Symphonia and they're calling it a remaster.
It looks exactly the same.
I saw like side-by-side screenshots and I'm like, there's like no difference.
Like, they have like AI upscaled very, very, very like low res textures and it doesn't, you can only up res that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are a lot of stuff coming to Switch that is already available elsewhere, which is unfortunately why I don't touch my Switch a whole lot. In fact, I don't know where my Switch is in my house. I know it's not in plain sight, but if I wanted to find it, I would have to like rummage through some boxes, I think.
Oh, jeez.
Which I need to do soon because I'm actually going to a movie night later tonight, and one of my friends is lending me the new Kirby game that came out this year.
Oh, Forgotten Lands?
Yeah, Forgotten
Lands.
Lands.
It's a cute game.
Yeah, I've been meaning to play it, so tune into episode 2 for stuff about that. But I saw some stuff about Nintendo 64 emulation, which does not excite me because, like, you know me, I do a lot of emulation, and Nintendo's Nintendo 64 emulation has not been widely well received. But I did raise an eyebrow when they announced GoldenEye, and I raised the other one when they said featuring online multiplayer.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's cool. That's gonna make a lot of people very happy. I think GoldenEye is okay. I've got fond memories of playing multiplayer at sleepovers at a friend's when we were really little, but I don't think it's aged super great. I'm far more fond of Time Splitters 2 on the GameCube, which has very similar gameplay, but doesn't have the James Bond license. So they do a bunch of cool stuff. But yeah, that is cool that not only they're getting a rare game, which is not only tied up with James Bond licenses, but Microsoft.
Yeah.
Like, that's really impressive.
Oh, did you see that bit about, like, fitness boxing? But they got, like, a Fist of the North Star fitness boxing?
I did see the Kenshiro boxing. And I'm like, that's silly, but way to keep Fist of the North Star relevant, I guess. There are so many Harvest Moon clones coming out, though. Like, there were
in fairness, Story of Seasons is just Harvest Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, it's just Harvest Moon. That Wonderful Life is a remake of the GameCube game.
Yeah. I think Rune Factory, like, while that is like an RPG spin-off, I believe that is made by the Harvest Moon company, at least.
Yeah, same people, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I definitely laughed out loud when the up next screen came up for the game Harvestella, I think it's called, and the cheery announcer is like, "Can you survive the season of death?" That was really funny.
I want Pikmin 4. I know they didn't show a whole lot of anything, but
yeah.
Oh god, I love Pikmin.
Yeah, Pikmin's cool. Yeah, I did find that funny. Like, Miyamoto is like, yeah, we're still working on Breath of the Wild and that Mario movie. You guys want to hear about Pikmin? Yeah, that was cool. Do you know what his official title is at Nintendo?
Miyamoto's?
Yeah. Because he used to be president, I believe.
No, I don't think he was never president.
No, not president, but like... I don't know what head of development, like, lead creative they like, title he used to have, but now he has a unique title called Creative Fellow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I think he used to be something like a senior managing director or something of the sort.
Yeah,
like
that's what I was thinking of.
Very
but you're right.
Title.
He was never president.
And then it's just really they changed his title to just like fellow?
Yeah, he is creative fellow.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. I think that's all I got for the direct. What else happened? The Queen passed away.
Yeah, the Queen passed away.
And that's
the whole thing. I was reading an article. I know, end of an era, right? We're not going to see another Queen in our lifetime unless something like happens to that kid that's like three generations down, because he has a sister. I think should something happen to him, like some freak accident that happens to him as a child, I think his sister would take over after.
Yeah, I do not pay attention to the royal matters at all. So what is going to happen immediately then?
Oh, immediately Charles has been crowned king.
Oh, really? So, we have a king.
Elizabeth II's son is now king. It's like we'll see another changeover in our lifetime because he's like 70-something.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
Like 73.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I looked it up the other day. So, he's king now. When he either abdicate or passes, it will go to his son William, I think is his name.
Okay.
And then when he abdicate or passes, it'll go to his son George. And George right now is like a kid. Like a young child. But like should something I think should something happen to George, like I said, like freak accident or something, should something happen to George, I think it would go to his sister Charlotte.
I see.
But otherwise, everyone in good health. The next, the newly appointed and the next two in line are all male, so we just have it in line for 3 kings to be next.
Wow. It's sad that we'll probably never see another queen in our lifetime, but seeing a king on the throne was not something I ever thought I was gonna see happen.
Oh yeah, because we've only ever known the queen on the throne.
No, that's been one weird constant throughout our whole lives.
But no, it would have been bound to happen sooner or later. Like, nobody lives forever, and we knew she was in her 90s.
No, that's absolutely true. I know. But, like...
But we have never known.
We were born at a time when we were still taught God Save the Queen.
I don't know, do they change that song?
What are they gonna do? What are they gonna do now? Are they gonna change the lyric?
They might.
They have to completely rewrite the whole song.
It's still, I don't think so, because it's single syllable, so you just replace single syllable, and I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think at any point does the word queen have to rhyme with it.
Yeah, you're right. I guess it's close enough.
So it could just turn into God Save the King? Who knows? Maybe there's a whole backup song we've never known about.
Maybe they have to pull something from, like, the 14th, 15th century. I don't know.
But it is an interesting thing I was reading, too, that it was during Elizabeth II's reign that they basically... I don't remember the exact year, it's like mid-2010s or something, but they passed an act where the next in succession does not immediately go to, like, the oldest male child. It's just the firstborn now, male or female. Just coincidentally, they're all male for the next 3 people. But it's why, because I was looking it up, because she has a daughter as well, and, like, I think she has, like, 3 sons and a daughter or something like that. But I was looking it up, and, like, the daughter is, like, 16th in line to the throne, and I looked up this roadmap. It's because it goes, like, basically that thing about the firstborn being able to get, like, just going in order of, like, oldest to youngest only takes effect for anybody born after, like, 2013 or 2015 or something of that sort. So the roadmap for succession goes, like, in a straight line down and then just starts going, like, topsy-turvy-weavy everywhere else.
I guess we'll hear news about a coronation soon or whatever.
Yeah. But I think he's technically King Charles at this point.
Acting king.
Or something, because I've seen some news articles that refers to him as King Charles. I don't imagine they do the coronation before they do the funeral. That's all.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That hasn't happened yet. Wow, that is soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoy your day off.
Thanks.
So this is the Inbox, our community engagement section of the podcast, and Julianna?
Slight trouble?
Yeah, we might have messed up. The box is empty, Julianna.
Who ate the mail?
Nobody knows we have a podcast, Julianna. Well, this embarrassment aside, if you want to send us any questions or comments, and want us to respond to them, you can reach out to us at Mad Millennial Media Munchers, all one word, at gmail.com, or on Twitter at MadMMMuncherPod. And that is going to do it for this episode of Mad Millennial Media Munchers.
Yes, send questions. I like questions. I overthink questions. You'll get a response that's, like, way longer than you anticipate.
Yeah, and that's a good way to get to know us a bit better. Thank you so much for listening. I know it isn't always easy to take a chance on a new podcast, and I'm sure we were a bit loose and stiff for this one, but who knows, maybe check back in 20 to 40 episodes and maybe we'll be pros at it by that point.
It'll be second nature by then.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Julianna, for joining me on this.
Oh, of course, my pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye!
That was perfect. That was a perfect outro.